Y'all already know how I feel about animes, animated series, anime adaptations, and cartoons. As you see, I'm a big fan of them. I'm talking Invincible, things like that, Castlevania, alright? We're talking Cyberpunk. I really enjoy them and I think they follow under the umbrella of an anime. So, as we kick into season 2 of Blood of Zeus, which goes into the life of one of Zeus's bastard children, Heron, we know Zeus likes to get around. He's somewhat of a whore. As we saw at the end of season 1, we get to meet Heron. He's a little bit different. He's still trying to understand all of his powers, abilities, and his strengths. And he finally makes his climb to Mount Olympus as the bastard is going to prove himself to all the gods and take Zeus's spot as his successor. Jumping into episode 1, we're hit with straight battle. Again, we got all the Olympians fighting against the people of the underworld, led by Hades, of course. Now, this anime is very fun and doesn't shine away from the Greek myth lore. I love all the myths, but Netflix and the Parodopoulos brothers did this justice. We get to see all of our favorite and most known characters. We get Zeus and his wife Hera, Hades and Persephone. We get to see Poseidon, Ares, aka Mr. God of War. Shout out my real one though, Kratos. We get to see Mother Gaia. We get to see wraiths, the Fate, Titans, Giants, and even Kronos, Mount Ida, and many, many more. This is very nostalgic. We get to see all the heavy hitters out front. So, as the battle begins, we zone in on Heron and his bastard brother, Seraphim. Like I said, Zeus got around. They both have been ignored by Zeus and taken their respective paths. Once the battlefield arises, they are talking and they feel the blood of Zeus running through them. Heron ends up killing Seraphim. With his death, the pawn that Hades now needs to directly get in control of Mount Olympus has just been given to him. He also has an idea of how to expose Seraphim to the truth of Mount Olympus and welcome him into the underworld. This animated series has to keep its pedal to the metal. And in episode 2, we finally see Seraphim, who is dead. He is in the underworld. Now, he's essentially getting judged by fate, but we do get to see a little background on why there are 3 battlegrounds in this realm. That being Mount Olympus, Earth, and the underworld. We find out that the Sinian Stone was taken by Zeus. We also know that this is ultimate power, and as we know, ultimate power corrupts absolutely. And this goes for Zeus. In the brothers' interpretation, Zeus banishes Hades to the underworld, just like the traditional lore, and Persephone and him fall in love. They fall in love, they're inside of a garden, and she is meant to be 6 months at Mount Olympus and the other 6 months in hell with Hades. Seraphim, being the demon warrior half-breed, he immediately gives Hades a cold shoulder and is casted into the Styx of eternal damnation. This is great with the lore, and I'm a big fan of it. Now, Seraphim is hard-headed, but with the lightness that Persephone has given to Hades, he is somewhat relatable of a father figure because Zeus just busts and goes. Zeus always gave him the cold shoulder, so now Hades, being that father figure, is trying to gain his trust. He's playing the long game, though, and he uses Seraphim because he has Titan blood, which was transferred from Zeus in order for him to walk amongst the giants, like Mother Gaia. And inevitably, he will be the only one to get inside of the dungeon to obtain this crystal that Hades needs. So with their interpretation, we get a little more backstory, and there's twists between how Hades and Persephone became in love. We get to see a softer side of Hades that isn't so traditional. Ares, following in his father's steps, is drunk, wild, and a bit pushy on Persephone. One day in the garden, she is pressed very heavily and has to fight back against the god of war. As Hades lurks in the shadows, he ends up protecting her. The only thing Persephone needs is the sun as one of her true powers, true to the lore, which sun gives life. While indulging in 6 pomegranate seeds, that is what makes her be able to live in the underworld for the last 6 months. And again, we get some more of the Greek mythology lore, the typical summer and the winter. This is how we get the seasons, etc., etc. This is the turn and manipulation that Hades gets Seraphim to be the vessel so he's able to get this stone, which was ultimately used by Zeus. Hades tells him the sob story of why he's been banished to the underworld, and he is still trying to play the long game and get Seraphim to trust him. It's a good twist and take on the traditional lore, but we get bits and pieces of the traditional lore and their interpretation of it. So in episode 4, with the war coming to a standstill, Zeus is essentially dead. And there are beginnings to this game to see who will succeed Zeus. This is what I was talking about, Heron climbing Mount Olympus to be a part of it. They do this with a simulation of games similar to the Olympics, and all the bigwigs are back. Hera, Heron, Ares, Persephone, and even Hades, they all agreed to this rule set. After making backdoor deals, Hades has essentially the double chance of winning Zeus's ring and title, which will get him inside of the mountain to get the stone. There's different events that people have to go through, which they think they're on even battlegrounds. That being archery, fighting, discus, and even track and field. Along with Seraphim and Hades, Ares has taken a random hatred to Heron. This isn't good to have the god of war on your opposite end. And we can tell that Heron has a death wish because he tries to fight. He tries to fight the god of war. And it ends exactly how you think it should. He's getting his ass whipped. But we got to remember, he's got the blood of Zeus running through him. And with that, he summons the hate of the half-breed and begins to slowly light up the god of war. Lefts and rights, we think he's getting the best of them. At least that's what we think. But then he tries to show grit and tenacity and is willing to die. Still, though, this is the god of war, and Ares does not hold any punches back. It's a phenomenal battle, and Heron is essentially saved by Mom Dukes, aka stepmom, aka Hera. Lucky for him. This shows also the hierarchy of the gods. Even though Ares is cocky, he doesn't respect half-breeds or bastards. He knows the gods are in a league of their own. Very, very well written. You can see how Hera, Ares, even Hermes kind of looks down upon the bastard son. It's very well written. Even though season 2 of Blood of Zeus is only 8 episodes long, it's very dense. And episode 5 comes out hot. Seeing Zeus in the underworld is just crazy. I never thought I legit ever would have thought I would have seen that. So it's a very eye-opening and a good catch to see Zeus dead and inside of the underworld. Another thing is we finally see the turn. So after all the action in episodes 1 through 4, it's finally starting to slow down. And at this point, I think it does not do it justice. I also see that they're preparing for a season 3, but for now, let's get back into the action. So yeah, Zeus actually died. Obviously, I think he'll be resurrected because in animated adaptations, all that stuff, they can't keep a character down for too long. We get to see him put in front of Trial of the Fates, and we also get to see Heron outside being the big demigod. He is the one who was chosen by Zeus as his successor and who will be the leader. He is the one who got the ring gifted to him. Now, back to Zeus. His trial shows his true evil intention by putting Hades on a clinic. It's beautiful. This epic key is so low key and the fillers are so crazy, but it does have some important parts that we need to cross the line that's going to set us up for things to come in the future. He is temporarily found guilty by the Fae and sentenced to Tartarus, so he's legit going to jail. This gives straight shots for Hades. We gotta remember, no Zeus, Seraphim in his back pocket, and a young demigod bastard standing between him and the grand Licinian stone. Hades is geeked. That toppled with the gods fighting amongst themselves, trying to get to the hierarchy to take Zeus' spot, is seemingly very easy for Hades to have a straight shot to victory. And then we got episode 6. And as you all know, in my list and rankings of anime or animated series, you need to have 3 core things. Depending on if it's a manhwa, shonen, or if the story arc changes, these are my prerequisites. It has to be funny, it has to have good art, it has to have sensational animation, easy to follow, and not repetitive. But most importantly, it can't be predictable. And I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. At the end, this gets predictable. So to backtrack, when I saw season 1, I gave it a fairly high ranking. One day I'm going to share with y'all my top 50 list, but season 1 of Blood of Zeus, I gave it a 6.25 out of 10. It's in the middle of the pack, but let me give you some other my personal rankings between the 5s and 6s so you get a general idea of what I think a 6.25 is supposed to be. One Punch Man, Akira, Fire Force, Ragnar Crimson, and other animes along that line. Those are what I would classify as a 5. They're good, they have a good story, but there's nothing that you are talking to your friends about immediately. Some of the 6s will be like Re:Zero, Trigun, Tower of God, Parasite, other animes like that. They're good animes, but they're either repeating themselves or just not super entertaining. For an animated series like this, so Castlevania, Cyberpunk, Invincible, This is definitely the lowest ranked out of those. But season 2 is looking like it's going to get a 5 because the vibe that I'm getting is anytime that Heron has some adversity, all he has to do is get mad, summon his blood of Zeus that's been passed through him, and he gets out of it. You'll see that with Ares. You'll see that in season 1. You'll see that when he gets lost in a cave. You'll see that when he's fighting Titans. Well, guess what? That's not filling my criteria, and I'm slowly seeing season 2 as a fail. I think we all can agree that it did fall off, but all they're worried about is the money, and they're worried for a season 3. Sorry, Netflix, but you're dropping the ball. And sadly, but the filler continues, and it seems like they're truly just building up for season 3 in the third arc. The animation is pretty neat, and we get to see a Titan battle, which is really cool, and the Titans really go hard. We gotta remember, the Titans and the Giants were the fathers to the gods. That was cool, but eventually he gets defeated. We also get to see some more lore with some Hydras, some Amazonian giants, and again, this is really cool, but nothing to do with the series. It's just filler, and it's going to ultimately lead us up to the battle that we've been waiting for since the early episodes. So, Seraphim, being who manipulated by Hades, gets into the cave where the magical stone lies. He poisons the giants who are getting protected by Mount Gaia in the tomb. Since he has Zeus's and giant blood, he can walk amongst them. He relates to them, and especially with the poison, he essentially just poisons their mind and tells them that he was never there. It's very predictable. I called it. I knew it was going to happen. And that's how we close up episode 7. And sadly, but the filler continues, and it seems like they're truly just building up for season 3 in the third arc. The animation is pretty neat, and we get to see a Titan battle, which is really cool, and the Titans really go hard. We gotta remember, the Titans and the Giants were the fathers to the gods. That was cool, but eventually he gets defeated. We also get to see some more lore with some Hydras, some Amazonian giants, and again, this is really cool, but nothing to do with the series. It's just filler, and it's going to ultimately lead us up to the battle that we've been waiting for since the early episodes. So, Seraphim, being who manipulated by Hades, gets into the cave where the magical stone lies. He poisons the giants who are getting protected by Mount Gaia in the tomb. Since he has Zeus's and giant blood, he can walk amongst them. He relates to them, and especially with the poison, he essentially just poisons their mind and tells them that he was never there. It's very predictable. I called it. I knew it was going to happen. And that's how we close up episode 7. And then we have episode 8, the season 2 finale. We finally have all of these things coming to a point. Hera poisoning the earth with cordyceps mushrooms. Again, I don't understand why they decided to go this path, but they did. Randomly, Heron acquiring Zeus's blade after fighting one of the fighting titans inside of the ocean, and Ares still wants the crown. Seraphim decide if he wants to work along Heron, or if he wants to choose his lover, if he wants to be a pawn in Hades' game. Hades in full-fledged swing to try to acquire the stone and be on top of Mount Olympus, relieving himself from the underworld. And truly, season 2 isn't even about Heron. So as we come to a close, they exit Zeus's underground palace where the Great Mystic Stone was, and hell finally breaks loose. Honestly, the build-up wasn't that good, and it seems like they could have stretched these into other episodes. As we get to the climax, everyone is fighting to finish up the war. Ares, Hera, Hades, Seraphim, even Poseidon pops up and makes an appearance. Of course, Heron too. Being he's the main character, he ends up with the rock and decides to spare everybody, including Hera. You gotta remember, in season 1, she wanted him dead on multiple occasions, calling him a bastard, hating Zeus. We also get a little mini rematch between Heron and Ares, but with the blood of Zeus and the stone going through his hands and through his head, he puts hands on Ares like a masseuse. They did all that filler just to rush a 3-minute fight scene. I don't understand, but as we come to the point where it's time for the peaceful speech, him being the good guy, the hero, Hades, being the evil overlord, chooses violence. This is the only thing in the 2 days or 230 minutes it took me to finish this whole entire season 2 that I did not predict. He goes straight Hassan Campbell, stabs Heron in the back. Hades then wields the stone for a short while, then Mother Gaia comes out to save the day. Again, they rush this ending, and it's a shit show. That's all it is, a pure shit show. So that's the review. Let's be honest. Season 2 had some really cool ideas, but it ended up being shit. Essentially, they're setting up for Kronos. They're setting up for Typhon, who I'm guessing is the main Titan, who's Zeus's dad and Mount Gaia's wife. I don't know. It's a lot. Season 2 perfectly sets up season 3, and possibly we might see the return of the Titans. Let me know what y'all think below. I am definitely giving this like a 4.5. So it went from a 6.25 in season 1 to a 4.5 in season 2. Let me know if you all have watched it and what you rate this in the comments. I'll see y'all in the next one.